Winter's coming, and with that it gets pretty cold outside, and to warm up the cold season somewhat, I decided to do something different for a Christmas/winter theme video, and that's listing my 5 favorite hot areas in games. Note that these are not in any particular order and are based on my own opinions, so if you disagree or have an area I didn't name here, let me know in the comments down below. With that said and done, let's fire up. When I talk about lava/fire areas in games, it's hard to not mention a Mario game, which is why it's the first thing I'm doing for this video here. I picked out Mario Galaxy for this one, which is Mario in space, for those who don't yet know. Anyway, in the Garden Dome there's a certain galaxy named Melty Molten Galaxy, which looks like it's between two huge connected spheres of lava, which are also different in color for some reason. In this stage you get your standard Mario lava level mechanics like magma fountains, blazing hot steam, sinking platforms, and of course an environment that's absolutely hostile to the player, where everything will burn you alive if you dare to just get close to it. The missions here are pretty simple and include things like getting on top of in the lava sinking structure, balancing on a ball for a core on lava, and a boss fight against Dino Piranha, which is on fire this time, and a silver star collection mission on a planet that has rising/sinking lava level. There's probably a theme to the missions here, but I can't really point my finger at it. I'll be honest here, I've never completed Wind Waker, but what I played was something I really enjoyed. The cel-shaded style of the visuals and the whole traveling across the vast ocean was so fun, and the music. Ah man, I need to pick up playing this again. This reminds me, if you played the game, you might know Dragon Roost Island, and even if you don't, you'll for sure know the music here. But it's not the island itself I'm talking about, more so the dungeon on it, or in it. The dungeon itself starts pretty tame. It's your standard cavern, but once you enter the main room, this is where it gets hot. It's a multi-layer cylindrical area with lots of doors that lead to other rooms. In addition to that, there are bridges on each layer that connect the two sides of the room. The music is mostly just ambient, completely different to the theme that just played minutes before. There are also some pretty neat mechanics, from lighting fires with burning sticks to making platforms appear by throwing water inside the lava. You get lots of things to do. You also have your standard enemies like the bats and these things I don't know the name of, but you also got these caterpillar-like things. These curl up into a ball when hit, but they can also be defeated by hitting their eye when they attack. The boss of this area is Goma, which on second thought looks kinda creepy, doesn't it? Once defeated, the pool of magma Goma was in dries. Well, it cools off. A heart container is dropped, a teleport thing appears, and with that, the dungeon is over at last. Sonic 06 is pretty famous for many things, glitches, this cutscene, and of course load times. Personally, I enjoyed it despite its uniqueness, and if you look past its admittedly many flaws, you find a pretty solid lava, or should I rather say fire stage in it. Crazy City not only has my favorite soundtrack in the game, but also is my favorite stage in the game overall. In terms of aesthetic and overall how it plays compared to other stages, looking at you, lab stage thing. Starting on the board, sliding down a building is pretty neat, and this section with the floating platform is pretty okay in my book. And before I forget it, there's also a tornado that's carrying a car. The stage got a real glow up in Sonic Generations, alongside the many other recognizable stages from across the series. All with updated textures, models, and 2 remixes of the soundtrack, one for the modern and one for the classic version of the stage, and both are amazing! Regardless of which version of the stage I played, I always enjoyed blasting or not so much blasting through a dystopic, burning city, all between these crumbling buildings with explosions and fire all around. Partners in Time is one of the best entries in the series, not only in terms of the story, but also of the environments and the soundtrack. There's a past version of Yoshi's Island, glitzy desert, and even an area on a UFO. My favorite of the bunch, however, has always been the Thwomp Caverns or the Thwomp Mountain. The game starts you off on the outside of the Thwomp Mountain. You climb that mountain, and just as you reach the top, it erupts. Logically, you sprays that erupting volcano with water, which actually works. You must hide with an angry storm later, and you can finally enter the caverns that are inside the mountain. The area itself is pretty big, with lots of fire enemies around, so having a lot of ice flowers can be a real lifesaver here. To progress, you need these colored blocks to free up the way below the Thwomp that brought you in. To make traversing and backtracking throughout the area easier, you get these shortcuts, for lack of a better word. The whole aesthetic of the area is such a huge contrast to the green mountain you read just a second before. The music fits the area so perfectly in a way I can't even describe it. It sounds so rough, for the lack of a better word. Lastly, at the lowest point in the caverns awaits Bowser and his younger self. The following boss fight can get pretty intense when you aren't prepared, so don't forget your ice flowers here. Jump from 2D to 3D was something the Metroid series did amazingly well. The world feels incredibly big and alive. There's something crawling or something to look at every corner. After beating a monster's plant thing, Samus leaves the chosen ruins through an elevator. After arriving, jumping down a shaft, the ambience of the music slowly fills in while the player goes through the lava-filled corridors until eventually being greeted with the opening cutscene for the area. Simultaneously, the main theme of the area started playing, and it's an absolute banger. One thing I, and maybe some of you didn't know for a long time, is that the theme of the Magmor Caverns is actually a remix of Lower Northrend from Super Metroid, which is a pretty nice thing to know. The enemies here range from space pirates over gas mines, and the little insects led this thing, which is the most annoying enemy in the whole game, all the way to the dragon-like fire-breathing lava snakes you find here. Another thing to note is that you can technically access the area before acquiring the various suit, but you'll take constant damage because of the heat, making it rather impossible, at least really hard to go through and to reach the Ventrana drifts. Fun fact with the thermovisor, the whole area is barely visible due to the heat everywhere. And this concludes the video. Leave a like if you liked it, or not if you, well, didn't like it. Also, I have a Twitter which you can follow, and a Discord you should definitely join. Link down in the description. Definitely check them out. Until next time.